now that we know our panel, we wanted to do a quick poll of the audience here. Who has participated in any function on a peer review? We participated in it, administered one. Excellent. Who in the audience has a peer review coming up in your district soon? I'll give you a hint. If you're in the Dallas district, Brownwood, Bryan, San Angelo, or Abilene district. Can you raise those hands again? Got one coming up? All right. So now we know who, especially who we're talking to. So let's just open it up with a quick, rather broad question, but I think it's rather relevant. And whoever wants to tackle this one, please jump in. But what is a peer review in your mind, and why do we do them?
Go ahead, Lance.
All right, I'll go first. So guys, a maintenance peer review is simply, thank you, Tom. Do I need to?
Is it on? Oh, that one's on.
I think I'm gonna stop now. All right. So a maintenance peer review is simply a process, or just to make sure that our best practices get shared around the state. Now, a lot of folks will think it is something that is not all that great to have come to a district court. I see you smiling. I'm not mentioning you. But it's one of those things to where, so it's on a 4-year cycle, so no district gets picked on, and everybody knows before the year ever starts who's on the list. And it's one of those things that a group goes around, and it's headed up by the maintenance division, and so you're going to have the maintenance division director, and he's going to invite a couple of visiting district engineers, and he's going to make sure he invites a visiting director of maintenance, and he's going to have somebody from the maintenance division that is there just on staff, and they're going to come to a district, and they're going to spend about 3 days riding with the district engineer, director of maintenance, director of operations. They're going to ride with every maintenance supervisor. District maintenance administrator is going to be invited along, and whatever area they're in, that area engineer is going to be riding along. So if I did all that math right, that's typically 12 folks that spend about 3 days really getting to know each other, crammed in a van. And it's really a conversation with the maintenance supervisor. Now, there'll be a conversation in the back with the area engineer, but one of the things that is really neat about it is the director of maintenance and the district engineer, they're not allowed to talk. And even in the case where the district maintenance or the district director of maintenance drives across his district line and keeps driving, nobody's allowed to tell him, right? And it's one of those things that where you just learn a lot interacting with these maintenance supervisors, seeing and identifying good things and learning more about that, but also just trying to help identify things, problems that they're having that you may have seen the solution, or somebody may have a solution the 4 districts away that sure might help. And it sure is a good way just to maybe keep things from slipping through some cracks. But it is a good program, Philip, and I pretty much explained the old peer review process. I realize this thing is to talk about the new piloted process that we did in Odessa. Maybe I'll stop there and see before you transition into that.
Well, let's just transition into that. So what does the new peer review process look like? And perhaps why are we making some of these modifications?
So you
Whoever wants to pick it up. Chad?
As Lance said, that it's not to be picked on, but I sort of feel like we were picked on because we got 2 years in a row. I'm not sure if that's a good or a bad thing. We did go through the traditional peer review 2 years ago. Like I say, that's sitting in a big van, driving a lot of roads in a couple of short days, have a closeout. It's still a good process. I think you learn a lot. You learn more from the closeout because it's more open discussion at that point. Like you said, in the van, pretty much I got to drive and just listen. Couldn't participate in it at all. The new one, they came in, brought 14 two-man crews into the district. They sort of split up and had those 14 crews to the north and south just because of the size of our district is. But basically, they ran a two-man crew. They each picked a morning with the supervisor and an afternoon with the supervisor, and it's a very one-on-one discussion. You get a lot more discussion in during that time. One of the big positives I saw of it was, if they pulled up to an issue they saw on the road or thought, what are you gonna do here? The old style, you just sort of kept driving and let them talk, is they actually stop, get out, walk around the road, kick the pavement, see if it was actually failing or not. I thought it was a big improvement over the initial one. It seems like our supervisors really took to it a lot more. I think they really get more out of that peer-to-peer exchange and talking to other maintenance supervisors, other administrators, and really sort of getting to feel what they may be missing. And I know I sort of joked about being picked on, but sometimes when you're stuck into that same rut, these peer reviews, you see the same things every day. You start missing what you feel may be less important or something, and it's always good to have somebody else come in behind you and sort of point out some of the obvious stuff and to help you out. And our supervisors, we had some that sort of didn't like being picked on, but overall, like I said, we discussed it with them, and I think they understood the need for it and the value. And I think they all got a lot of value out of it. And we've made some. Hopefully, we've made some improvements based on the 2 years of peer review. I hope. We'll see if I get one in less than 4 years or not.
Yeah. What I really like to kind of go along in that from the other perspective was it allowed us as the peer review folks to drill in a little bit deeper than just the supervisor or the director of maintenance or whatever. We might have show up in these offices at 5:30 in the morning and waited for folks to come in. And once they realized that we weren't there to get them in trouble or something like that, they relaxed and talked to us. And so we were able to really get a feel from the boots on the ground level all the way up through the management. And it was stuff for them to learn, but it was stuff for us to learn as well. And so it allowed them to kind of open up, and it, allowed us to see things that were good and things that weren't so good. We even had some timeouts. I know we stopped a couple operations, loading equipment, for example, and it gave us a chance to talk to those guys and gals that are actually doing the work and let us try and figure out you're doing this because was it poor communication as the department? Was it poor communication as the district, the supervisor? Maybe they just chose to not do it the way that they should. And so it allowed us to really kind of get a feel of if there's a failure breakdown somewhere, where was it? And we made good notes of that and we're able to kind of carry that information back and take it from there.
So, Philip, I'm gonna go ahead and add my part in on the new format. So the format where everybody's in the van, it is almost been compared to speed dating. So the maintenance supervisor pretty much has an hour and a half or so, maybe not even that. And literally in the van, you've got the maintenance supervisor sitting in the middle between most time two district engineers, and they're bouncing questions off him right and left. So you spend most time riding like this, and either you're riding like Jamie is, where you're wedged up against the thing, or you're riding like I am, where you got half a cheek hanging off the seat. In some districts, I think, just hire former high school offensive linemen to be maintenance supervisors. So there's some big old guys out there, and it's just not all that comfortable, and it really makes it difficult to get all of those, or at least topics, covered in that time frame. And you've got multiple conversations going on every row, and it just isn't all that easy. You rarely have enough time to drill down into a really good topic before it's time to swap, and you get another maintenance supervisor in there, and then you start all over. And it really didn't allow a whole lot of time for even the maintenance supervisor to ask any questions that he wanted to out of us. So the new format, the thing that I really liked about it, is you pretty much get 4 hours with a maintenance supervisor. And it is just 2 members of the team and 1 maintenance supervisor. So at least the team we were on, and so I was with a fantastic maintenance supervisor out of the Children's District, a guy named Benavidez, who was supposed to be on the panel. And Foo's just awesome, but Foo and I would make sure we got up early enough in the morning, and no matter what, we were going to be the first ones out the office. And we got to see kind of what time everybody rolled in. We got to help them make coffee. We got to sit around and shoot the bull with them. And we got to just see how the whole morning started in their office and we got to sit into their safety meeting, and we got to see what all they talked about in their safety meeting. And then we got to interact with all the employees as they PM the vehicles, and we got to walk the yard, and we got to visit with the supervisor just a whole lot more. And then we actually got to ride out and look at his individual roads, and he got to kind of show us what he was really proud of and what they had just finished working on. And we got to stop in and see the crew that was working there that day. And there was just a whole lot more that you got to see. And that maintenance supervisor, after spending 4 hours with just 2 folks, had plenty of opportunities to ask questions, ask feedback, lots of stuff. Now, the only negative part about all that is, even when we did Odessa, Fu and I only got to ride with 4 maintenance supervisors. We didn't get to see the whole district. We just stayed in the south half of the district and just got to ride with 4. So you really don't get to encompass the entire district. But the time we did spend with our 4, we thought was very well spent.
Excellent. So, one of the important aspects of the peer review in the past has been to evaluate their safety culture. How do you feel that the new process, and I think you've alluded to this, how do you think the new process helps us to accomplish that goal, to look at their safety culture?
All right, so I guess I'm gonna start off with that one too. So typically, you're just having to quiz the maintenance supervisor about their safety culture. Well, when you are in their office and you are sitting in their morning meeting, you get to see whether or not all of their hands are wearing a shirt. You get to see whether the maintenance supervisor is wearing a shirt. You get to read all the stuff up on the wall. You get to see how up to date their plaques are. You get to hear whether they talk traffic control in the morning on exactly what they're doing, whether they got their contract flaggers in. You get to hear if they discuss JSA. You get to see if they use the Google Earth on the TV. You just get to see how much time and effort they put into these morning meetings, and you get to witness all that. And you get to sit in there with it and participate in there with them, rather than just asking the supervisor. And you get to see how much time they spend on PM their equipment, and you get to see their tailgate meeting and how that works, and whatever safety topics they have. And it's real world. You get to go through it and participate in it. And you also get to see all of those sections. How did they do on their traffic controls? You got to sit in there in the meeting, and you got to see them talk about TCP 1-2B and how they were going to set it up and on what side. But then you actually got to get out there on the road and see what was going on in the office, how it translated out into the field. And it was really helpful. It was different. It was a whole lot nicer.
It was, and to follow up on that with Lance, it also, when they walked in and saw us sitting there dressed in the same clothes that they had on and the same work boots, we weren't in our slacks. We had on our work jeans and our work boots, and we became part of that team. And when we get out in the shop and do stretch and flex with them and those kinds of things, then once again put them at ease, and they were able to ask a lot more questions, even if it's safety related. How do y'all do this, or what is the different problems that they may have or concerns they may have? And we heard a lot of that from all the employees. And so once again, from doing it this way instead of the traditional way, it embedded us as one of them, and really let them relax and talk and communicate with us on any concerns that they had or any information that we could pass to them as well.
Following up even what Lance said, you sort of got to see who was talking the talk and who was actually walking the walk. I know we did have a couple of different crews that actually did have a timeout. They came up on something they thought was critical enough that they stopped operations and had discussions. And I think that helps emphasize with the crews the importance of the safety, especially when you have outside people coming in and telling them, taking time out and discussing the traffic control and what they need to be doing.
Chad, I'll let you start with this next question here. Since you were recently visited, if someone were to come to you and ask for help in preparing for a peer review, if there is such a thing, but if someone were to come and ask for your help, what would you tell them? And not just from the perspective of being visited, but if you were going to go into a district and you were going to help out with the evaluation, what would you recommend people to do in preparation on both sides of that?
I think on the receiving district, I think you need to have discussions with your supervisors up front about what the peer review process is and for them to go into it with an open mind, so they're not shut down, and sort of let them know what to expect. This one was sort of hard because it was sort of thrown onto us. I think I only had a couple of days of notice. They didn't even let me know that they were coming in. And you don't really want them to change their daily processes. And I thought a big deal, good thing of it was them showing up first thing in the morning, because nobody was expecting that. So you got to see really what they were gonna do. So I think having the discussion up front with your supervisors, let them know the process, what they're gonna do, and just sort of alleviating some of their concerns about what they're actually there for. You know, that it is there to help. Sometimes it's hard to hear some of your shortcomings, but overall, it is to make you a better district and a better maintenance team. For the ones coming in, just come in and be prepared to be brutally honest. I mean, don't sugarcoat anything with them. Tell them what you see, and you know, don't be afraid to tell them their positives. I think that helps just as much as putting out all their negatives, because if you're just negative, then they're going to shut down and not want to talk. But if you point out, you know, the positives they have in each section, then that'll be a help as well. This one was a little different. The first one, you know, we actually had to make these big peer review manuals, which had a lot of information and good, useful information. You know, this one we didn't have to do that. I'm pretty sure, I don't know what preparation they went through, but I'm pretty sure everybody evaluated and looked at PMS scores and stuff like that prior to get there. So, I mean, they're come prepared to discuss some issues that each one that's coming in, some of the major issues that they deal with on a daily basis, not just what they're seeing in another district.
So, Philip, I'll add on to that. So, three things real quick I would think of anybody getting prepared is, you know, one, don't try to put on a dog and pony show. So some of these folks that have done this a long time, like Dennis and Lonnie, man, they can sniff that out in a heartbeat. And that's not one of those things that's gonna help. Having everybody convinced that this thing is here to help, to where the attitudes are good, that always is beneficial too. And when these folks get asked questions, it really helps to be honest, because eventually somebody in the group is gonna drill down enough to where the truth's gonna come out anyway. So I remember in one district, somebody asked a question, so the bays in the shop didn't have the overhead clearance sign. So somebody says, hey, how come you don't have overhead clearance signs? And they say, well, that's in the process of getting put up, right? Well, that wasn't quite a good enough answer, so it got asked, so where in the process is, and it ended up waiting on the maintenance section to actually measure it to send the thing in. So it wasn't like the signs were ordered and all that. It just didn't, it would have sounded a whole lot better if he just said, yeah, we need to get those, you're right, rather than having to dig all that out. But it is just, it's really simple on as far as, I wouldn't go to a whole lot of trouble getting ready. Just have you folks ready to tell the truth, and just be honest, have a good attitude.
Yeah, and on the flip side of that is, you know, have them prepared to ask us questions. You know, what is y'all's purpose? Why are you here? What can you do for us? I mean, that's the goal of the program, bottom line. And so, you know, encourage them to ask questions. It's not just a Q&A that's one direction. You know, we want that feedback from them, those questions from them, so we can share information back and forth. So prepare them to, even if they, you know, start writing questions 2 days ahead of time, to be ready to ask things. And I think that's a very important key, too, for it to be successful.
All right. Do you guys have any other topics you'd like to discuss on this? Any other questions for each other, or?
So at least one of the things I'm gonna add, the new format, I liked a lot. Now, I realize it is a lot more effort on a lot of folks, because instead of bringing about 4 folks in from outside, you're asking 14. But it was pretty beneficial, I thought. And I'm gonna tell you this, so I learned something on every one of these I go from on. There's gonna be something that a district is doing that is pretty dang neat. But one of the things too I learned from this in this new format is I got to spend a lot of time with food. Now, this was the second special assignment I had been on with food. And man, that guy, I just picked his brain. So we'd get up real early. Well, it may be an hour and a half to where we're going, so it's just me and him. Had plenty of time to visit all that. I know Jamie was paired up with Mike Anderson, and it's just a good time to form a bond. So I'm gonna tell you one thing here. So Team Mike and Jamie was known just as Team Mike and Jamie. Team Foo and Lance was just known as Foo and Lance, but most time that was written out as F.U. Lance. And that hung with me the entire week. It was Team F.U. Lance. But even now, when I run into something that I'm not real sure how to handle, I'll pick up the phone and call Foo. And man, that guy has been around and done everything. It just has a great section and a great safety record. And he's a guy I don't mind bouncing some ideas off of and picking his brain. But that was a relationship that I probably would not have formed without the new format going on. New format also allows a whole lot more of our really good maintenance supervisors statewide to get involved in this process. So old process, those guys really weren't in that mix. This process allows those guys to get identified and get utilized to where they get to spend some time with folks like me that really likes knowing those guys and likes being able to pick their brain when it's needed.
And to follow what Lance says, I think it gives the supervisors a good way to make some of these relationships with other maintenance supervisors. And I know we've got a couple of, especially if the supervisor was from close and deals with the same stuff on a daily basis. It helps put a face with somebody and somebody can go bounce ideas off of, questions off. So I think it help develop their relationships across the state.
Yeah, and like they were saying, that the toughest thing is the logistics. It takes a lot of guys or gals to make it come together and pull them away from their home districts for a week or 4 days, whatever it was. And so that's tough. But the interesting part of it is, if we were to ultimately be able to go back and kind of rework this to where the way it was set up now, a lot of times Mike and I would see a maintenance section in the morning, and then Fu and Lance would see another one in the afternoon, and then we'd switch the same groups and see them once again. We'd have the other pair in the morning, afternoon, so on and so forth. And maybe ultimately we get to the point that we don't see the same crew with two different people, and we can do it with less people. We can get it done quicker, because the ultimate interesting thing was in the evening when we'd come in and start comparing notes, we were amazed how almost exact our notes were with Fu and Lance whenever they'd come in from the morning session. Just almost exactly the same thought processes, and so that communication was really good. And so maybe there's an ultimate chance that we can eliminate some of the logistical problems with the number of folks and the amount of time that it takes, just because we had a uniform process that we go through. We had already printed out a form of kind of things that we were looking for and how to manage it. And once again, almost all of our notes in the evening were identical, and so that worked out really well.
Wonderful. Does anyone have any questions for the panel? This is your chance. All right.
As far as the end closeout meeting, identification of best practices, I mean, how is that going to be shared around the state? Has that been figured out yet?
So the question is, at the closeout meeting, the discussions there, how is that information going to be shared statewide thereafter?
Right, especially the best practice method.
Oh, especially the best practices methods that come out of the closeout meeting. Does anyone want to
So I'll take that one first. So Andrew, normally I'm going to share those at a staff meeting whenever I get back with the staff in the Bryan District. But that report does go out to the folks that were on the team. Sorry, Mike, go ahead. Yeah, because Philip, a lot of times, will be the guy that actually does the report.
So actually at the maintenance conference that was just canceled, I was actually going to do a presentation on a lot of the best practices that have come out of the peer reviews over the last year and a half. And so it'll be forthcoming.
Okay.
So Andrew, we owe you a question when you get up here on your panel next. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, understand.
Other questions? Yes.
How is the peer review team selected?
How is the peer review team selected in the new process?
We drew straws. No, I don't.
So I'm gonna try to answer for the maintenance division on that, Pete. So the maintenance division is going to be the ones who picks those 14 folks. But with the short fuse on Odessa, a lot of that was even based on availability. So Pete, you and I both know not all district engineers were lucky enough to come up through a maintenance background. But I know it is their intent, and everybody's gonna have, an opportunity at some point, at least from the DE standpoint. Now, maintenance supervisors, I think they are looking for those top guns that are out there, that are really gonna be able to go in and get ahead. Share the wealth. Thank you, Mike Anderson says.
So there's an opportunity for district engineers to nominate maintenance supervisors that they feel do a good job.
So I'm gonna do the best job I can of answering that for the maintenance division and say yes.
I know the answer, I just want for everybody else.
I understand.
Other questions? Esteemed panel, any other comments or input?
Philip, you did a good job.
All right.